happened, I worked in Montana on the Great Northern Railroad. And Montana's pretty spread out. So. But there's only three things that a young person can do in Montana. And that is either your father owned a ranch and you worked on the ranch, or your father owned a business and you worked on that business in town. Or if you could get on the railroad. That was the one that everybody wanted to be on. Well, when I graduated from high school, I had a job. And I knew the guy who ran the Dairy Queen, and I knew he used to work at a railroad or whatever. And I asked him, I said, you got a job for me? I thought I'd pick up papers around the Dairy Queen, get a few Dairy Queen. So he said, yeah. She said, can you be at the depot downtown tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock? You be an operator? Sure. I figured I'd be, there's a bunch of old women plugging stuff in a board, you know. But I wasn't. They came down and said, right, what you're going to do is you're going to be assigned depots for when people go on vacation, for when people transfer to another station, or whatever. You were called the extra board. You know, there were about 12, 15 of us, I think. And then they would assign us to these towns. Well, most of the towns certainly were like Broomfield, and certainly didn't have facilities like this. There was only one I worked at that had facilities like this. And the unique thing I noticed right away when I went there, I was 60 miles away from town on the main line. My room, or the depot, was this big here, and half of your waiting room there. And that's all the bigger it was. There was a 60-watt bulb, just like that, and that's all there was for lighting. And then there was the stove. Okay? What I had done, I had gone from 1959, that's when I graduated, to 1869. Because that's what it was like. We didn't have television.
Wow.
There was no. The phone was only a phone for the railroad. Nothing else. Of course, there was no television. The radio was in my car, so I did that. I would be assigned to the depot from 8 to 4. 8 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon, and then I was off until 8 o'clock the next morning. But in some stations, nobody came after me because there wasn't any train going down that line, right? So then I would live in the depot in those two rooms. The 60-watt bulb, I had a hot plate, and I would eat my can of beans on the hot plate. We had a desk. Like you had me, the desk out here. The desk was my bed. I'd have to sleep on the desk. What I would do for entertainment is I would go to the stove where we had to bring in our own coal too. And I would break open the coal and I'd look at fossils. Boy, that's a big Saturday night, don't you think? And so I got to looking around all this kind of stuff. And after a while, being 18, 19 years old, I wanted to go to town. Well, town was 60 miles away, so I didn't go to town. But not only that, but in the wintertime, when in the fall, when she started becoming winter, I had a little old used cars. That's all I could get. I would take my car and $100 down to the used car dealer every 2 weeks and trade it in for another one for $100. So I wasn't getting very much of a good car all along. And matter of fact, one day I got a letter from the States that said I was trading cars too often. I got to be a dealer. I said, no, so I had to quit doing that. But in there, it would 40 below is nothing out there in that country. So even if it was your 2 days off, you probably didn't go anywhere because number one, your car wouldn't start. And if it did start, what if it broke down? You see? So it became my world of 1869. after a while, I began to keep notes and a journal or something. Yeah. Once in a while, the telegraph would go off. My call was P.O., P.O., P.O. That's 5 dots, 2 dots, 5 dots, 2 dots. And that would say, hey, I got something for you to do here. Then what I would do is where's my satchel? Give me there's a piece of paper in there. The white notebook, yeah. We would get the train orders. Train orders were on a situation about this big, but they were fine tissue. And they had carbons beneath them. One for the conductor, one for the engineer, and one for our file. Now, we didn't use pen, didn't have pen, didn't have ballpoint pen. So we had a stylus. We would write on the stylus all the way through there. And typically it would be the phone would ring or the video, and the dispatcher would say 19 east. 19 meant those things that we called them elephant sticks. If this was east that way, you'd throw the east semaphore so that it would drop down, and that would tell the engineer that there was a train order for him. He had to have a train order. So he'd say, all right, C&E. I want 2 copies to the conductor, one to the conductor, one to the engineer. And it would be typically extra east of 147, meet extra 201 at Broomfield. Extra 247 take siding, HHF, okay at 1157. What that meant was these 2 trains were going to meet, but there's only one set of rails. One of them had to take the side. Okay, the one that was going to go by me first was obviously going to get the message to pull over. All right. If they didn't, of course, they'd crash. They would pull over and then they would go by. Now, when that train came to go to a siding, the siding may be another 8 miles down the road. And they would come by at about 70 to 80 miles an hour. Right? You want to stick. What we would do is we would go on out to the railroad track. We would touch the track and hold it that far up. That train would come by then about that far away from you. All right? That seems to be okay, except that sometimes, and you have to be aware of this, when they unload the boxcar, there would be metal strips that they would pull together the whole thing together so they wouldn't shift around. They would cut those, and then they would take out the boxes and things. Now, when they did that, these metal things would just lay out there, hitched to the boxcar. And at 60 and 70 miles an hour, standing that close, it cut you in half. Oh. So you had to be listening for a tink, tink. That you hear. And that would be the metal slapping against some steel part of the train. You got to, the train made a tremendous roar. But even in that roar, you could hear something that was out of whack. Right? And then the train would go by, hopefully. We'd give it to the last guy, and then to the conductor, and away they'd go. Well, except if they missed, they'd have to back up. The other part that the operator had to do was watch for hot box. Now, a hot box, the axle that goes through the boxcar, it's a big round thing like that. They had a little door on the outside of it, and they would lift it up and they would pack it full of greasy rags. And then the door would shut, and that would be the lubricant of that axle. Well, if those rags weren't changed at the right time, or if it was too long of a draw, the rags could catch on fire because of the heat and the friction. If the boxcar above it was made of wood, you could have a fire. If it was made of fuel, if you were coaling fuel, you could have a tremendous explosion. So what we had to do was we had to be sure to stay close enough to the train, listen for the tick, and look at each axle as it went by to make sure it wasn't smoking. And if it was smoking, you could smell it. No problem there. Then we had to start counting. 1, 2, each axle went by until we came to the conductor who was out there getting his last train run. And he'd look at you. If you had a hot box, you'd hold your nose and point. And then he would know that there was a hot box. Then what would happen? I'd come back inside, and if we were lucky, we had a radio. The engineers did, and they said, "What did he get?" I said, "We got a hot box at car 104." All right, so then they'd have to separate that out or check it out. Again, you shut down the main line, and you'd have to notify the dispatcher right away because trains are going to start stacking up, and all kinds of complications can happen. Well, that's how things would happen when it got busy. The reason that these windows were pulled out was sometimes when the dispatcher would call you, "You're ready for a trailer," he'd say, "a 19 east," and you'd look out the east window down the track, and hopefully you wouldn't see the train. You wouldn't be here. But you could see, if you could see the train, you better get that train done, copied on that stick, out there, stand there, and get it done. Because that train was not going to stop. So that's why those were primarily out there. And what's that first one talk about now?
Well, we just did the message hoop fork.
Okay, we did the message fork.
And how about the Prince Albert can on the telegraph?
Yeah, and the Prince Albert can, that really made the sound much clearer, and you could, it acted like a little drum, really. And it gave it a different sound, and again, you could differentiate it between the rest of the sounds that were going on. And then when your train went by, you said OS on a telegraph or into the phone, whichever the dispatcher wanted you to do. OS and the time. That means outstation. Train is outstation. You'd say hot box. And boy, you get mad. And because now you had all these trains to back up. So anyway, that's the way that went. Now, one time I worked in a little depot like this when it was winter time, and I was coming. I had gone to town. I was going to go to town. I wasn't 60 miles that day. And stayed at a hotel. The hotel was $2.50 a night to stay. We didn't often have the $2.50. But at any rate, it was wintertime, and so it was time to come back to work. Well, it was dark out, the wind was blowing, it was drifting snow and everything else, and I was driving my car down the gravel road to get to the depot, and I could barely make out the depot down there when all of a sudden the car came to a stop. What had happened is there was a long drift, and I'd come to the drift, rode up on top of it, and got high centered. I was stuck, okay? Couldn't go forward, couldn't go back. There's my depot way down there too, a long ways away. And like anybody else, I was too cool to have a snowsuit or anything like that. You know. So I thought, well, there's nothing I can do until daylight. Okay? So I said, I'll just hunker down here and keep the heater going, and I'll be all right. Well, I got to dozing off, and then I thought, monoxide. My God, if I stay here with the windows rolled up, I'll get monoxide. So I cracked the window, and really early in the morning, and I could see a star on the horizon. It was coming, getting bigger, and bigger and bigger. And it was a farmer tractor. And he had seen me get stuck and came out and got me. And he said, "Stay in your car." So he hooked on the front of my car, pulled me down to the depot, unhooked it, drove off. I never saw him again. Never said thank you or anything. But that's the way that people survived out there, was by helping somebody. You just did it. That's all there was to it. So,
How much did you make working?
well, I was figuring that out the other day. If I had $100 at the end of every 2 weeks, I had probably made about $300 a month. Yeah, I made about $300 a month. Because I realized after I'd gotten in there that this is not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. It was interesting for a while, and later on, but I would try to save as much as I could for college. In the summertime, well, this gets into the story of Shep.
Yeah, tell us.
Okay, tell you the story of Shep. 1936, a sheep herder died.
What town?
Fort Benton.
Montana.
Fort Benton, Montana. And the sheep herder died, and they took him like on a wagon like you got out in front here, and brought him up to the depot to put him on the train to take him back to Minnesota to be buried with his family and his flock. Of course, he didn't take the dog; they left the dog there. But the dog, and the train left. The dog, until 1942, met every train coming into that station, looking to see if it was his master. Now, it got some people at the depot began to feed Shep, but Shep would have nothing to do with anybody. Came in and he'd go away. He wanted to see his master. Well, one chilly, rainy day, it's a drizzly day, in 1942, at about 10 in the morning, the eastbound mail was coming. And Shep came to meet the mail, and as he stepped across the rail, he slipped on his hind haunches, and the train got him, killed him. Well, that's how it happened. After he died, he was in Ripley, believe it or not. And after he died, then people, they had outside of our depot there was a bluff, kind of high hill. People decided in town they wanted a monument to Shep. So they built a monument up there at about 1943, 44. And then they made a huge figurine of Shep. And the railroad then decided they'd put spotlights on Shep to light him at night. And it was my job, if one of the lights burned out, I had to climb the thing up there and change the lights. But it was interesting. It was interesting to watch when the passenger train would come in from the east or the west. When it came to Fort Benton, people would move to that side of the train so they all could see Shep. Mm-hmm. Well, I was working in the depot, of course, and one day, nobody was there, nothing to do. So I rummaging around the freight house, and I opened up this drawer, and I found a dog collar and a little tab that said Shep. Been in there for God knows how many years. It was in there, and this was 19, when I found it, 60. Anyway, what I did then was, people would come, when I'd be working on Sunday, people would come down the road there, and they would get out, park their car, and then they'd walk up and see Shep with their kids and so on. And I especially liked to visit with the people from Ireland or Scotland or something. And then I'd call them, I'd say, come over here. And then they'd come over, I'd tell them the story of it. Of course, I liked to be told again, I already knew it. But then I would hold up the collar and it's just nuts. you know. And when I left that station, I wanted to take it with me. I thought, you know, I'm still going to bed. I wish I did. Well, I didn't. I got back to that station. You and I got back there after it had been abandoned and so on. And I said, I wonder if it's still around here. And we tore through some debris and so on with there. But Ann and I couldn't find it. So somewhere we
The same chairs were there.
Yeah,
It was
my
quite literally
original chair was
abandoned.
there.
Wow.
Yeah.
It was still there, yeah.
But so, Dad, did you ever work on a track with 2 tracks when 2 trains went by?
Oh yeah.
So tell the story with
Oh,
the
my.
hoops and the 2 trains.
I got a call one night when I was working at a depot, and the dispatcher said, "We need somebody to work Christmas Eve." Well, I was thinking, I need money. I'll work it. What's what do we have to do? Well, I said, you got to get to Glasgow. So Glasgow was about 110 miles down the road there. I said, we got to have someone do, you know, in case the train orders. Okay, I'll do it. So when the train came going that way, I got on the train. We all had free passes. I rode down my pass down to Glasgow and got off, and got to going. Well, it was a winter night again, and the dispatcher said, we got 2 trains meeting. It's a double track, but one of them's too long. So what we gotta do is we gotta have one of them get by the other one before it gets in there. But it's gonna be nip and tuck. So he said, I'm gonna have you do 2 train orders. One for the eastbound and one for the westbound. Yeah. I got to thinking, well, if that guy goes that way, how am I gonna get it through the next train to get to the other side? And he said, what you'll have to do, you'll have to stand between them. So, did my train order and got him out there. Sure enough, the one big train came and went by, and I got up, and he took it. It was all right. And then about that time, it came the other train going the other way. So now I had trains going like this. And, you know, it was beginning to kind of make me dizzy and woozy. So rather than lose my balance, I said, well, I'll watch for the rear end of the train, and I sat down. When I sat down, after all, I heard this whoosh, 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 whoosh. It was those steel bands.
No.
Swishing right above my head.
Oh my
Whoosh,
gosh.
whoosh, whoosh. And then it really scooped me.
Could cut you in half.
Oh, wouldn't it like sliced meat laying all over the trains? And so anyway, finally I could see the other one coming, and I finally got up, and I got in his, and everybody got cleared. They got real sad, real quick, like it always does. And I walked back to the depot, and I
Said I really need to go to college.
huh?
He said I really need to go to college.
I said OS Glasgow, and he said OS and took the time, and he said, how are you doing? I said okay. He said, let me tell you something. Don't ever do that again. It was absolutely against the rules of the railroad and everything. I like was too dumb. I didn't know anything.
So what were we supposed to do? Just pick one and give the message, and the other one give the other message?
I should have asked you how to clarify who's CEO, who's going to decide what's going on. You can't do that. If I'd have read the book of rules a little closer, it probably would have helped too.
So the other thing, we went back to Fort Benton to this hotel, and he said, you know, he didn't make a lot of money working on the railroad, and so you could only afford the back side of the hotel, or there was like a nicer rooms or whatever. And so when we went back, I guess it was like 4 years ago now, was the first time, and they still had keys in their hotel, in this old school hotel, that we got a front hotel. So he was 75 years old before he got to stay in the front front side of this nice hotel in Fort Bend.
Of the nice hotel, yeah.
He's like, man, it took a long time to get here, but
Yeah.
about
Can you-
50 years.
Can you tell us what inspired you to write the book?
Well, I guess it was during those times when there was a lull, you know, that I began jotting those things down. And of course, once in a while we'd sit around with other operators, you know, that you would meet, and you know, somebody would tell something. And, I remember the time when you know, that kind of stuff. I remember one particular night, for example, we were on the telephone there. It was all the way up and down the line. It was like a party line. Everybody could hear it, even the dispatcher. So you had to kind of watch yourself. Just like the boss. And one of the fellas' name was Bill, and he was about 60 miles down from me. And we talked. I never met the guy, but we talked back and forth. He said, "Well," I says, "I got number 27 coming, so I'm gonna get out here and unload the freight, and I'll get back later." Yeah, okay. Well, he didn't get back that night. You get busy, you know, and so you'll go about your business. Well, the next night when I came to work at midnight, there were 4 or 5 guys in the depot, business suit guys, except for one guy, big tall guy, a cowboy hat, had 2 pearl-handled guns on his hips, and they said, "Last night, Bill down at Bainville was got robbed or attempted robbery, and beat him up pretty bad and left him in the depot and so on. And they think that probably this station is next, probably tonight." So he said, or one. So anyway, he said, "We're going to have this guy sit in the back of the freight house and ride a shotgun for you." What was he shot?
Yeah.
But at any rate, the depot was across the street from Last Chance Bar. The Last Chance Bar was right on the edge of the Indian reservation. And that's where all the Indians had to make on the reservation. So what they do is they come on in town and spend their money in there, and come on across the street, use the toilet. Well, every time the door would open coming into the depot, I could hear click, click. He's loaded his gun in the door. So start shooting now. Finally, he never talked to me. Never talked to me. We sat there for about 4 or 5 nights. Never talked to me. Then one night he just busted open the door. He said, "They ain't coming, I'm late." And I never saw him again. I was sure that he had figured out that they were going to come in and rob me, because that could have been serious business on my body.
Train robberies were a big thing.
I didn't want that, so I was at Harlem. What's the other one? You got another one in there?
No, I think Shep was the last one. Yeah.
Heather, can you tell them or somebody about this safe? Apparently this safe was the only one not robbed or something.
Oh, well, we had a bank in Broomfield originally, but the bank was robbed 3 times, but a lot of people felt safe leaving their money here with the depot agent, like farmers, if they had a freight coming in or something they needed to pay for, they could leave it here because our depot was never robbed, so.
Wow.
Yeah, unusual, huh?
Yeah, that's unusual.
And that's the original safe too.
You know, so when the train would come in, we had to unload the RPO, registered post office. Post office was in trains at that time, and I used to have to unload it. You know, and we had an implement dealer in town. We got these big bags. I lifted them up. God, they're heavy. They were full of washers. Washers, stacks of these washers. One night I unloaded them and I complained to the railroad post office guy. I said, "Why in the world anybody keeps shipping washers?" He said, "Is that what you think they are?" That's what the guy at Bainville thought they were too.
How many?
They were silver dollars.
No way.
Because you see, the Indians were paid in cash, and this was their payment period, and so they would unload these
Oh, from the government.
from the government.
You're trying to figure out why they were. What were they doing with all these washers?
Yeah, washers. These I figured, well,
They
combine.
probably didn't want to tell you because they didn't want you to start dipping
Yeah.
in either, right?
Like, as long as he
anybody
thinks it's
knows,
washers,
we can
yeah.
get rid of them.
But that guy sitting back there, then it made more sense, you know.
Didn't you have a story about when people had to transport bodies on the plane or
Oh,
on the
yeah.
train and where you had to put them and there was a family?
Yeah, I was at a station on one Sunday when it was in a town about 1100, I suppose, and the funeral first pulled up. I could see that there was problems, and so they came in and said, okay, we're going to take the body to Minneapolis, and the widow was there. You know, she was distraught. She got killed in a hunting accident in '84. And she was crying and she was upset. And I didn't quite know how to handle the situation, so I called the ticket office in Havre. I said, how do I do this? And he says, sell her regular first class ticket. You do a first class ticket for the corpse and then stamp it void. Oh, geez, I said, isn't there a different way? Big red stamp void presents for your dead husband. And I just felt terrible. He said, no, there's no other way. That's the way it's done. Do it. So I did. And she sat along with her group in the waiting room there and you know, crying and moaning and so on. I said, but the coffin was loaded on one of those hand trucks, like you got out here on those carts, you know, and put in the freight house so it could be loaded on the train. Well, I thought, you know, why not? So I went over there to the waiting room and I said, would you like to be out by the casket? And I said, yes, God, that'd be wonderful. Thanks. Well, of course, there's a big sign there for employees only. That's it. So anyway, the train came, and I started pulling the thing out, and of course the fellows who were there, they helped push it out too. And the guy on the train said, what the hell is this? I said, we have a corpse. And he started cussing. You know, what in the world? I was told there was a corpse coming here, you know, and so on and so on. And he said, and what were these people doing coming out of the freight house? I mean, just shouting this kind of stuff. See? And I said, I did it because it seemed like a decent thing to do. Well, 3 days later, I got a letter of reprimand from the railroad that I had violated company policy, and that guy on the train turned me in. So that was kind of an off-brand visible. That was. I didn't care
What are you gonna do?
much for that. No.
Was there anything else in here you can explain to them? Then we probably used up 30 minutes.
No.
I want to make sure and get some pictures of all
Yeah.
your family and everything together.
So you say you only got one light bulb. They got two. Oh,
Let me
pretty
see
here.
the book. Anything I might have. What you didn't think was interesting.
What I think was interesting. So we did a trip Memorial Day weekend a few years ago. We went back and visited all the depots. And what's interesting is that most of them are abandoned right now because you just have the big ones. And one of them is even a house, so a family moved into it.
Oh, okay.
But we stopped in one, and he just sat at, there's only a bar in town. A lot of times there's a bar and a post office and the depot, and that's it.
Yeah.
So there was one bar still open, and we just sat down and had beer, and sure enough, some guys walked in, and they worked on the railroad at the time. And he said, oh, I worked back in 1960 or whatever, and they started picking his brain about all these things.
Yeah.
And namely the hoops, because I think nobody can imagine that was OSHA approved, obviously, to like stand out there with a stick and just hope that they get the message. I mean, and like a message that take off, change train tracks because there's another train coming, which is major catastrophe, especially if there's blowing snow and nobody can see another train coming anyway. But it was interesting for the guys who were working on the railroad then, and the stories and the folklore, I think that they thought they knew, and then to actually talk to someone and hear the stories was pretty amazing. They were picking his brain about all the kind of crazy stuff that they hear that was true.
How many
there was the only way
different
to do it.
depots did you work at?
So on that trip we visited 4 or 5?
4 or 5.
Well, because some of them again it's a town now, and there's just not anything left.
Yeah.
So we went in and dug through one, visited a few. But they're about.
Montana has a
4 or 5.
law that if you have a building and you abandon it, you're still taxed on it. So the railroad went along. Along about 1960, CTC, Centralized Traffic Control, started coming down the tracks. That was the electric control. So they didn't need us anymore. It was a little more color. So when those things were done, they would bypass that depot. Well, that depot then was just a tax liability, so they would bulldoze them down. But we got to a few of them if they didn't, which are probably gone now.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of times he would have to work because he was just a fill-in. He didn't have like a regular good schedule.
Right.
So sometimes you'd go 60 miles out, and you'd have to work one day, kind of an odd shift, and then you wouldn't have to work for like another 30 hours, but like not enough to go home, and really not enough to pay for your gas to go home.
Yeah.
So I thought it was interesting that they kind of just let you live there, right? And you just brought like canned goods and you slept in there because, like what do you, especially Montana where it's so sparse, if there wasn't much to do or how to get there. And so, you kind of, no phone, no internet. You brought books to read, but he would tell me that that's a lot of times how he would just sit there and, you just think about life and like stories. And I think it's amazing I think it's Pride and Prejudice or one of those books was written all at once. Like someone sat down and wrote it in like a month. It was like just.
On the railroad.
Yeah, must have worked on the railroad because there's just nothing to do.
Yeah.
Imagine living in this room.
Well, it got to be a point where
amazing.
I was always trying to save money for college. So at this one depot that I was working at that was staffed all around, I couldn't sleep there, and I couldn't afford to go to that big hotel downtown. So what I decided to do, I had a big Buick. I just sleep in my Buick. It was summertime.
This is a good story.
But the thing of it was, I had to find a place, I wouldn't get arrested or nothing.
Yeah.
So I would I drove down the highway a while, and there was a turnoff like into a pasture, into a field pasture. So I said, well, that's pretty good. You just open the hole there and you see, I'll stretch out here my old Buick. But it's a big name. Well, it was the crack of dawn. All of a sudden, there was this tremendous roar that just shook the car. Well, I tell you what, I was sleeping in the back seat, and I jumped out into the front seat in my skivvies and t-shirt, started my car up to get out of wherever it was coming with. But I had parked on a railroad track or something, And I looked, I caught this glint out of my eye, and there was a guy in a prop plane with a big grin on his face. I had parked at the end of a runway for prop dusters.
Oh no.
And it just raised me out.
Skinny guy in his underpants
I
running into his car.
I could see him laughing. I suppose he treated us catching a couple. Getting me out of funny business.
Yeah.
So when did you start your family? After the depot work, you went to college?
Yeah, after I got out of the depot, then I went into broadcasting, and the college was always there in town, and so I just picked up a course. Took 6 years to get through school. But then we went on into teaching and administration.
He said he chased my mom. Basically, she saw her in line signing up for a class, and so he signed up for the same class.
Oh.
He went to the class and she wasn't there, and the teacher said, well, she switched to the other class, the other days a week or whatever. So he switched. Then he went to that class and still didn't see her. And so she switched back to the original class. Not because of him, he didn't know any better, but he said he courted her, and Montana's so close, northern Montana's so close to Canada, that, you know, they called her the bombshell. She's fairly good looking. And she dated like a Mountie that was in Canada, and there was all these guys, and this one was smart, and so he helped her with her schoolwork. And eventually, kids stay in school. That's what won her over. So he said he asked her to marry him every day for like a year, and she said no. But he worked at a radio station, and one day he was doing a contest, and he picked up, the call and said, "Sorry, you're caller number 4. You didn't win. Sorry, you're caller number 5. Whatever." And he picked up, and she said, "So if we got married, when would we get married?" And he said he hung up, got on the radio as a radio DJ, and said, "Folks, we have a winner," and just cut it down, because he said she finally agreed to marry him. So it took a little while, but yeah.
Yeah, we didn't those days. We didn't park. We could park overlooking the railroad yards, and so we were going to a concert one time, and so I took her up, and behind I had a Chevy station wagon. Behind the seat there, I had a dozen roses, or 11 roses, and a bottle of champagne. So I told the guy at the radio station, I said, "Now listen, when it comes to be 6:12, that's when the sun would set. So when it comes to be 6:12, don't talk, don't put in a spot on that drive, just ease into the days of wine and roses."
That was their song.
So that was their song. So he tried it. That sun was setting on the Buffalo Jump, and I reached, and she looked at me out of there, and I gave her the flowers.
11.
And 11. I said, "That's funny. I thought I got 12. Well, we went to this concert. And I'd set it up with the guy at the concert. When he was done with his concert, he was to come down to the 5th row. On the aisle would be a blonde. Give her that rose." That's what he did.
Wow.
And I said, "I guess that makes 12. Will you marry me?" And she said, "I gotta go to the bathroom. I had too much wine."
Never said it. Took a while. It was her out. She wasn't ready. But he kept after
I
her.
kept after him.
So they just celebrated their 52nd wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
So now you're living here in Broomfield?
Yes,
So they moved to Iowa. They both became teachers, both my parents. And he became my principal and my superintendent. And Iowa had a lot of job opportunities. And he started an apiary, making his own honey. And he was the high school history teacher and in charge of the drama department. And then he went back, got his master's, and became my principal, and then my superintendent, and then the dean of a vocational college in Des Moines. And then I met my husband. He's from Fort Collins, so we moved to Colorado. And my brother moved to South Dakota, and his family left. And so I said, "Well, there's no sense in Iowa by yourself." And I brought him out here to Colorado. It was a February day, and it was 65 degrees. We sat on the back porch, and they were like, "This is a lot nicer than living in Iowa."
Yeah.
So they were on the fence, and I told them I was pregnant. They put the for sale sign in the yard, and they moved here. How many years ago? 3 years ago? Yeah. So here we are.
That's great.
Born February 29th, 1940. So he'll be 20 in 2020.
What date?
February 29th.
29th. Leap year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he'll
So
be.
really, you're only like
I'm 19 now.
20.
No,
Yeah, I was gonna
I'll be
say.
20 February.
So this is your golden birthday. This year is your golden birthday because you'll be 20 in 2020, right? Or is it 29? 29 on the 29th? Okay, so I'm close enough. We'll call it your golden birthday. 2020. 20 in 2020.
Can we get your family kind of gathered around and
Sure.
get a couple pictures maybe? And did he get to see